Today, we're breaking down the 6 ways the legal system sets you up for burnout and what you can do about it. This is the Lawyer Burnout Solution, the podcast for female attorneys who want to stay in the careers they worked so hard to build without running themselves into the ground. I'm Heather Mills, and every week I'll share the tools, strategies, and mindset shifts you need to reclaim your energy, confidence, and career. If you were here last week, you know we cracked open the pressure cooker and dove deep into the internal side of burnout, the perfectionism, self-criticism, and people-pleasing that keeps so many of us simmering in stress. If you haven't listened to last week's episode on the internal side, go check it out. It's the foundation for everything we're talking about today. We talked about how our own minds and habits can turn up the heat, even when we're doing everything right on paper. But that's only half the story. Today, we're focusing on the other side of the equation, all the external stuff. I'm talking about law firm culture, impossible workloads, and the system itself, the relentless, often invisible forces that keep turning up the pressure no matter how hard you try to keep up. Sometimes it really does feel like the deck is stacked against you before you even sit down at the table. And just so we're clear, this isn't about blaming you or telling you to slap a positive affirmation on a toxic workplace. Burnout is always an inside and outside job. The causes are both internal and external. But when it comes to recovery, the work always starts on the inside because that's where your real power is, even when the system feels rigged. So if you've ever wondered why self-care isn't working or why just set boundaries feels like a joke, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Researchers have identified 6 main external causes of burnout. And if you're feeling fried right now, chances are you're checking off more than one of these boxes at the same time. This isn't just my opinion. These are the patterns that show up in the research too. Let's walk through the external burnout checklist and see how each one shows up in law. The first external cause of burnout is work overload. This one's a classic. Too much work, not enough time, not enough support. If your idea of inbox zero is just closing your laptop and pretending it doesn't exist for a while, you're in good company. In law, it's always on as a badge of honor, but it's also a recipe for exhaustion. And it's not just the hours, it's the emotional load, the constant pressure, and the fact that even your breaks are spent worrying about what you're missing. The second external cause of burnout is lack of control. Do you ever feel like you're micromanaged down to your font size? Check. When you have little say over your workload, your schedule, or even how you do your job, it's not just annoying, it's a proven driver of burnout. Lawyers love autonomy, but the profession often hands you a script and expects you to stick to it. The third external cause is insufficient reward. Recognition matters. If the only feedback you get is when you mess up, and your last thank you was in a reply all email 3 months ago, check that box too. Reward isn't just about money, though let's be honest, that matters. It's also about feeling valued, secure, and seen for your work. When that's missing, motivation tanks and cynicism creeps in. The fourth external cause is breakdown of community. Law can be lonely, even in a crowded office. If you feel like you're on your own, you're not imagining it. Whether it's a lack of mentorship, support, or just a real sense of belonging, isolation is a huge burnout trigger. And remote work? Sometimes it just means you're isolated with better snacks. The fifth external cause is unfairness. If you've ever watched someone get promoted for their leadership, aka being loud in meetings while you do the real work, you know what I'm talking about. Unfairness isn't just about pay gaps or promotions. It's about trust, transparency, and feeling like the rules actually apply to everyone. When they don't, resentment and burnout aren't far behind. And if you've ever experienced any kind of discrimination based on any of your identities, you can definitely check this box. And the sixth and final cause is value conflict. When your firm's values feel like they're written in invisible ink, or you're asked to do work that just doesn't sit right with you, that's value conflict. Maybe you're enforcing policies you don't believe in, or you're being pushed to prioritize billables over ethics or well-being. That kind of mismatch eats away at your motivation and sense of purpose. So here's the big picture. These 6 traps are the checklist items that keep turning up the heat from the outside. Workload, lack of control, insufficient reward, breakdown of community, unfairness, and value conflicts. The more boxes you check, the more likely you are to feel burned out. And if you're nodding along to more than one, you're definitely not alone. Most lawyers are living with at least 3 or 4 of these checked off on a good day. Honestly, after going through this checklist, I think if there were an Olympic sport for keeping it all together, lawyers would sweep the podium every year. The good news is that just recognizing what's on your burnout checklist is the first step to taking back some control. And remember, you don't have to tackle every item at once. Even small changes, 10% changes in just one area can start to turn the tide. Let's talk about what it actually feels like to live in this legal pressure cooker day after day. Sometimes your brain blows things out of proportion. And sometimes it's reading the room with laser accuracy. Because let's be honest, the system really is unfair a lot of the time. Either way, it's your stress response that's doing the heavy lifting. That's what creates burnout. Not the workload itself, but the way your body and mind react to it. And here's the part that matters. Even if you can't change the system overnight, and let's be clear, most of us can't, you can always choose how you relate to it. That's your power. You might not be able to control your boss's mood or your firm's billable targets, but you can start to notice how you're thinking about it, how you're treating yourself in the middle of it, and what you want your response to be. So for example, when it comes to feeling rewarded or valued, here's something a lot of us get wrong. We think switching jobs or careers will finally make us feel appreciated. I made that mistake. But the hard truth is, if you don't believe in your own contribution, no new job is going to fix that. The legal system isn't set up to hand out gold stars. Real reward comes from recognizing your own impact and letting yourself feel good about a job well done, even if no one else says it out loud. So yes, the system is rigged. Yes, the pressure is real. But your agency, your ability to choose how you relate to all of it, is where you start to take some of that power back. And that's the first step to turning down the heat, even if the pressure cooker itself isn't going anywhere just yet. Now let's be honest about what you can and can't control when it comes to burnout. Some parts of legal work are simply out of your hands. The deadlines, the billable targets, the last-minute emergencies, or the culture of your firm. Sometimes you really can change your circumstances, switch practice areas, find a new job, or finally say no to that committee that's been draining your soul since 2019. And if that's what you want, you don't need anyone's permission. But sometimes you can't or don't want to change the external stuff right now. Maybe you need the paycheck, or you're just not ready to make a big leap. That's where acceptance comes in. Not pretending everything's fine, but being honest about what's outside of your control. As one of my coaches put it, I don't have to like it or agree with it, but I need to see it as clearly and honestly as possible. Here's where your release valve comes in. When you can't change your circumstances, you can still choose how you respond to them, even in small ways. That might look like logging off at 7 p.m. instead of replying to that 11 p.m. email, or giving yourself permission to take a real lunch break without guilt. Sometimes it's just about finding little ways to turn down the heat so you don't blow your lid. If you're finding that the external stuff feels impossible to change and you're feeling stuck or powerless, this is where the internal work comes in. Go back and listen to episode 5, where we dig into those internal patterns like perfectionism and people-pleasing that you can shift, even when the system won't budge. That's the inside job, and you might be surprised to find out that it matters more than what's happening around you. The bottom line is that you're allowed to want more, to hope for better, and to take care of yourself, no matter what the external circumstances look like. And if you need to remind yourself with a sticky note on your screen, or by celebrating every small win with a little dance in your office, I fully support that. All right, let's wrap up with a little homework. I promise this is homework without grades, just a chance to get curious about what's actually driving your burnout. Just like we did last week with internal patterns, this week I want you to notice which external boxes you're checking. First, take a few minutes to jot down which of the 6 external burnout factors are showing up for you right now. Is it work overload, lack of control, not enough recognition? Maybe you're collecting the whole set. If so, you're in good company. Next, notice your thoughts about each of those stressors. Are your thoughts accurate? Are they a little exaggerated? Maybe both. Just observe, no need to judge or fix anything yet. Then, think back to a hard thing you've survived before. Doesn't have to be dramatic. Maybe it was getting through a particular law school class, a tough case, or just a brutal week when everything felt impossible. What strengths did you use to get through that? Finally, ask yourself, what would it feel like to genuinely believe, I've gotten through hard things before and I can do it again? Let that thought sit with you for a bit. And hey, bonus points if you do this exercise with a glass of wine, a fancy pen, or in your pajamas. No judgment here. Sometimes resilience starts with comfort. Remember, this reflection isn't about fixing everything overnight. It's about building awareness, one honest look at a time. That's where real change begins. Before we wrap up, let's zoom out for a second. Yes, the legal profession is notorious for turning up the heat, but that doesn't mean you're stuck or powerless. Burnout might be fueled by both your external circumstances and your own patterns, but the path out always starts with what's happening inside you. Real burnout recovery happens when you address both sides of the equation. So if you're ready to go deeper, let's talk. If today's episode hit home, let's take it a step further. Which of these external pressures are weighing on you the most right now? I'd love to hear your story and help you figure out your next move. You can book a free 20-minute call with me. We'll talk through what's going on and start mapping out a way forward together. Think of it as a quick check-in to explore what might actually help. No pressure, just a real conversation. You don't have to navigate burnout alone. Sometimes the first step is simply having an honest conversation with someone who can relate. The link to book your call is in the show notes. That's all for this week. Remember, you're not failing at lawyering or at life. You're doing your best in a system that, frankly, wasn't built with your well-being in mind. So be kind to yourself, and I'll see you next week. And if you know someone else who needs to hear this, send this episode their way.